Welcome and thank you for opening this book. This title page introduces the subject of self knowledge and inner wisdom. In the next sections, we will gently explore what true knowing means, why it matters, and how these teachings will guide the listener toward clarity and calm understanding. This page contains publication and copyright details along with edition information. It also lists the author and publisher contacts. Take a moment to note the source and credibility of this work as we move from formal details into the heart of the teaching that follows. This short foreword introduces the author's purpose and background, explaining how these reflections emerge from study and practice. It sets the tone, a blend of practical guidance and spiritual insight intended to help readers understand the nature of mind and awareness. In this continuation of the preface, the author speaks about the aim of the book, describing how age old teachings have been presented to be accessible and useful. The tone reassures readers that the material that follows is both practical and respectful of tradition. This contents page lists the major sections of the book, outlining topics like the nature of mind, understanding consciousness, practical methods, and concluding reflections. It gives a roadmap so you can follow the sequence and anticipate the journey ahead. A blank or decorative page separates the preliminary material from the main text and allows the reader a moment to prepare mentally. Use this pause to settle and consider what you hope to gain from reading or listening to the following chapters. This opening chapter asks a simple yet profound question about the meaning of knowledge and why people seek it. It invites listeners to reflect on what it would mean to have true understanding and raises practical questions about wisdom across different stages of life. The text on this page includes an illustrative anecdote about a king and a servant used to highlight how people pursue knowledge and the obstacles they face. The story helps us see how context, intention, and timing influence genuine learning. The author explores the difficulties of convincing people about deeper truths, noting that authority, habit, and social status often cloud understanding. This page emphasizes that true insight isn't merely hearsay but a shift in perception anyone can test personally. This passage contrasts superficial acceptance with deep realization, pointing out that many accept teachings without investigating them fully. The author encourages a careful, experiential approach to learning, rather than swayed belief or mere repetition of phrases. Here, the text addresses the pitfalls of intellectualizing spiritual truths and stresses the need for direct experience. The author urges readers to ask practical questions and to engage with the material in a way that transforms daily life and inner habits. This page highlights that real knowledge is not just conceptual but has behavioral and ethical consequences. The author invites the reader to consider how ideas take root in life and whether understanding changes actions, reactions, and relationships. A reflective passage discusses how the mind collects impressions and how habitual thinking shapes character. The author suggests that by observing our habitual responses, we can begin to separate conditioned reactions from clearer, more liberated perception. The narrative explores why people cling to opinions and how this clinging prevents genuine freedom. It presents an invitation to observe without immediate judgment and to experiment with a more open, responsive way of relating to experience. On this page, the author contrasts emotional reactions with calm observation, noting that awareness can transform fear, desire, and confusion. The tone is gentle and practical, encouraging trial and reflection rather than blind acceptance of beliefs. The text continues to outline the practical benefits of self knowledge, clarity, fewer conflicts, and a steadier mind. The author suggests small daily shifts in attention as the foundation for lasting inner change rather than dramatic short lived efforts. This page begins a deeper look at the structure of the mind, introducing the conscious, subconscious, and deeper layers. The author frames these as practical categories to help us understand how thoughts, memories, and instincts shape our lived experience. Expanding on the previous page, the author explains how conscious awareness interacts with deeper mental layers and how habits formed at an early age influence adult behavior. The suggestion is to gently observe those layers rather than force or judge them. A short reflective passage describes how the habitual mind operates like a stored record of earlier experiences. The author explains that real transformation requires understanding and skillful attention to those underlying patterns, not just surface level willpower. This page offers practical examples to illustrate how mental habits form and shape our lives. By noticing recurring reactions and tracing them back to earlier causes, the reader is encouraged to methodically develop insight through reflection and practice. A page with an evocative image invites you to pause and reflect. The picture suggests freedom and perspective, like birds in flight. Use this moment to breathe, to relax the body, and to prepare yourself to receive the next section on the nature of mind. Chapter 2 opens with the theme of the mind's nature and introduces the threefold model: conscious, subconscious, and deeper consciousness as a working map to explore mental processes and practical methods for steadying awareness. The author clarifies terminology and explains how these three layers function in everyday life, stressing that awareness of this structure is a practical tool. The goal is to help listeners recognize where habits arise and how to intervene skillfully to foster wiser choices. This page uses simple metaphors to explain consciousness and the emergence of attention. It underlines that although different labels are used, all systems aim to show how inner life can be observed and gradually transformed through steady practice. A contemplative image gives a visual pause and supports the idea of clarity emerging from flow, like water over stones. This visual break invites you to ground the teachings by observing one steady breath before continuing with the chapter's core ideas. Chapter 3 shifts focus to practical methods for transforming the mind, highlighting how understanding leads to change when combined with consistent, careful practice. The author stresses clarity of purpose and gentle persistence as the path forward. Here, the text lists simple, actionable practices and the mindset needed to support them. Instead of forcing the mind, the emphasis is on sustained attention, cultivation of modest, repeatable habits, and compassionate patience with oneself along the way. This page explains how emotional patterns can be investigated and gently disbanded through awareness. The author suggests using daily situations as training grounds to notice reactions, examine their roots, and respond with wiser, steadier presence. A powerful example about how fleeting experiences shape lasting impressions is used to show how change occurs slowly but surely. The advice given is to practice consistently and to celebrate small insights, which accumulate into deep, lasting shifts. The narrative now expands on the idea that pleasures, fears, and attachments arise from conditioned responses. By recognizing them neutrally, we can reduce their grip. This page encourages curiosity and a friendly attitude toward inner phenomena rather than fear or suppression. This section offers a practical experiment. Observe one recurring reaction for a week, note its triggers, and watch for subtle changes. The author frames this as an accessible, evidence based approach to check whether inner training really works. A flowing image prompts the listener to slow down and absorb the teaching. Visuals like waterfalls or rivers here reinforce the metaphor of steady flow and change, encouraging an embodied sense of continuity rather than sharp effort or tension. Chapter 4 turns to deeper practice and integrating understanding into daily life, noting that knowing alone is incomplete without steady application. The emphasis shifts to maturation of insight through patient repetition and mindful living. This page lays out how practice affects character, showing that repeated small efforts produce resilience and clarity. The author reminds us that transformation is gradual and that consistent attention over time brings about gentler, more natural responses. Here, the text explores how habitual mental programs can be softened by consistent observation and subtle shifts in behavior. The advice is to use simple reminders, breath, posture, brief pauses, to bring attention back into balance throughout the day. This passage addresses the common obstacles we meet, like discouragement and impatience, and offers practical encouragement. Keep the focus small, realistic, and steady, and allow results to emerge without forcing them. A concise teaching on how the body and mind are linked, emphasizing that somatic cues often point to deeper habits. The author recommends attending to body sensations as a reliable entry point into understanding and easing mental patterns. The page provides a short guided approach. Notice tension, breathe into it, name the sensation, and let it soften. This simple routine is offered as a practical tool to interrupt automatic reactions and cultivate presence. Another reflective passage highlights the role of community, teachers, and supportive routines in sustaining practice. The author reminds listeners that while inner work is personal, it thrives when supported by steady, compassionate company and guidance. This page introduces a brief case study or anecdote showing how small daily attentions transformed someone's life. The example is used to illustrate the realistic, attainable path from confusion to more sustained calm and clarity. A meditative image appears to reinforce the message. Practice is like water polishing a stone, slow but unstoppable. This visual pause invites you to breathe and integrate the sense of gradual, organic change into your own life. Chapter 5 focuses on the fruits of practice, how steady attention yields clearer perception, better relationships, and wiser choices. The author invites readers to consider what changes are most meaningful in their own lives and to prioritize those. This page explores specific benefits like reduced reactivity, increased focus, and emotional resilience. It encourages practical evaluation. Notice one area of life improved by practice this week, however small, and appreciate that real progress is cumulative. The author discusses how practicing compassion and self understanding naturally extends to other areas of life, shaping conduct, speech, and priorities. This section connects personal practice to ethical living without moralizing, using compassionate clarity as the central ideal. A short passage invites the listener to apply these teachings in a family or workplace setting, suggesting small experiments. Listen more, speak less hurriedly, take a breath before acting. These modest steps build trust and steadiness over time. This page emphasizes integration. Practice shouldn't be compartmentalized but woven into everyday tasks, walking, eating, working. The suggestion is to use ordinary moments as opportunities for awareness rather than waiting for special retreats. A vivid example describes how a family or team responded differently when someone practiced steady attention. The story shows concrete benefits: fewer conflicts, clearer communication, and a friendlier, more effective environment. Chapter 6 opens by reflecting on how practice deepens insight into reality, presenting wisdom not as abstract theory but as lived clarity. The author encourages an investigative, embodied approach to truth, grounded in daily attention and moral integrity. This page explains that wisdom emerges from patient inquiry rather than fast answers. The author invites listeners to trust the process, small, honest observations repeated faithfully, and to avoid quick fixes or flashy promises of instant transformation. A contemplative image accompanies the text to encourage stillness and receptivity. Use this visual break as a reminder that understanding often arises in quiet moments when we are willing to watch without hurried judgment. This section introduces practical guidance for sustaining long term practice, including community support, periodic retreats, and regular self review. The emphasis is on realistic continuity rather than dramatic leaps rooted in everyday life. The author offers a brief checklist of supportive habits: regular wake times, short daily sessions, periodic reflection, and kind self assessment, designed to make practice stable, accessible, and resilient to life's inevitable disruptions. A page with a reflective anecdote reminds us that setbacks are part of the path. The author normalizes struggles and encourages a compassionate recommitment after difficulties, viewing mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures. This passage explores how to balance effort with ease, put in consistent practice but avoid harshness or self blame. The goal is wise consistency, sustainable, humane, and aligned with one's real life situation and capacities. The author now addresses common doubts and misunderstandings people face when they start their practice, offering clear reframes and practical pointers to stay on track without becoming perfectionistic or discouraged. Here is simple advice for those who feel stuck. Return to basics, simplify the routine, and reduce ambition into manageable steps. The message is always to prefer steady, small practice over sporadic bursts of intensity. A short practical exercise is offered. For 1 week, practice a single technique for 5 minutes daily and journal any changes noticed. The author encourages curiosity and observation rather than fixed outcomes, making practice experimental and personal. This page highlights how even small experiments yield data about one's tendencies and how that data becomes the basis of intelligent change. The author invites patient curiosity as the engine of mature understanding. A final image break invites you to sit quietly for a moment and breathe. Visual pauses like this help anchor learning in the body, making the teachings more tangible and easier to carry into daily actions. These closing notes summarize the book's essential message. Understanding arises through steady attention, ethical living, and compassionate self inquiry. The author hopes readers will take away practical tools and a patient mindset to continue their path. The acknowledgements and resources page lists additional books, recordings, and contacts for those who want to study further or access guided practices. It's a practical invitation to deepen the work with community and trustworthy sources. This practical index and contact page provides useful publisher and distribution details, along with ways to find more materials. If you'd like to continue, These links and names will help you access additional talks, books, or local groups. A short promotional and summary page highlights other works by the author and related audiovisual materials, inviting listeners to explore more teachings and guided practices if they find this material helpful and wish to deepen their study. The final pages include practical publishing information, a short list of related topics, and a closing dedication. As you finish this section, take a moment to commit to one small, sustainable practice that supports calm attention in your day. This concluding script invites reflection. What one small change will you adopt today to nurture clarity and compassion? The author's closing note encourages gentle persistence, reminding listeners that steady practice quietly transforms life over time. The end matter lists the book's table of contents in brief and points to additional chapters and themes available in other publications. This is a gentle nudge to continue exploring and to use the teaching as a stable companion for everyday life. The back pages include an index of shorter essays, audio offerings, and teacher contact details. If any particular chapter resonated, these resources will support deeper study and practice with guidance and community support. A final gentle reminder: true understanding grows when study is combined with steady application. The book closes by encouraging consistent, modest practice and a friendly, patient attitude toward yourself and others on this shared journey. This wrap up invites you to sit quietly and notice what remains after reading: subtle shifts, unresolved questions, and a readiness to practice. Use that feeling as a practical cue to return again and again to the simple habit of mindful attention. The author signs off with a brief blessing and practical encouragement to keep experimenting, keep observing, and keep living with greater care. The final tone is warm. Practice is a lifelong friend, patient and ever available when we return to it. An index and short bibliographic list gives further pointers to related texts and talks. If you want to deepen your understanding, these specific resources will help you find reliable explanations and guided practices to support steady development. A section highlighting practical retreats, recordings, and workshop opportunities follows, with contact details for arranging further instruction. This page helps you connect formal study with personal practice in a supportive environment. The author's closing remarks point to the heart of the teaching. Awareness practiced with warmth and steadiness brings true transformation. This final page is an invitation to keep the flame of inquiry alive in small daily actions. A brief postscript encourages readers to form a habit of daily reflection, however short, and to keep returning with curiosity and honesty. The author emphasizes that small, consistent steps are the most reliable path to lasting inner freedom. Final administrative pages list local contacts for study groups and upcoming events. If you feel inspired to join others, these details will help you find a community that supports regular practice and mutual encouragement. A short glossary or list of key terms may be included toward the back, clarifying important words used throughout the book. Terms like consciousness, awareness, habit, and practice, so listeners can revisit definitions as needed. The closing material thanks readers and listeners for their attention and offers a gentle blessing to carry the practice forward. It also reminds us that the path is personal, patient, and always available, even in small everyday moments. The very last page contains publication credits and a final note of encouragement, suggesting one practical step to begin, perhaps a daily 3-minute sit and an invitation to explore further resources for ongoing support.